This is so official.
Yeah,
I know.
it's official now. Thank you, everybody. We have two presenters today, Danielle Davis and Anabel Castillo-Soto. And I actually knew Anabel before I knew Danielle. And Anabel and I serve the workforce success leadership team with the United Way of Denton County. And both Danielle and Anabel are very important people at the Workforce Solutions of North Central Texas. And they did, and Anabel did a wonderful presentation at the Workforce Success Program a few months ago. And I thought, boy, all the things you talked about, and libraries need to know it. Library users need to know it. And so we start talking, and then Danielle and Anabel came to my office and we talked more, and we want to do more to really connect the libraries with the workforce solution offices all over Texas. So what we did, Carol and I decided to invite both of them to talk to you about all the things that Workforce Solutions have to offer, and then hopefully you will be able to see how your library can make the best use of not only the services, but also they got some money that may be available to different entities. And that's the kind of thing that you want your ears to perk up and make sure you don't miss it. So I am going to turn it over to Anabel and Danielle, whichever of you wants to start talking. Go ahead.
All right, so I am going to share my screen. This is Danielle, by the way. Hi. So let me get this presentation pulled up. Let me try that again. Okay, there we go. All right, so thank you for that introduction. I'm Danielle Davis, and I'm with Workforce Solutions for North Central Texas. And I've been with the organization for about 2 years. So I'm still learning about many of these services that we offer. So Anabel will be going through this presentation along with me, so we may kind of jump in at different times. But what we're going to offer today is just as concise of an overview as we can of the many different services. So thank you for having us, and feel free to type in any questions. I can try to answer those when I'm not speaking, or we can address questions at the end. We are here for you, so happy to take any questions you may have as we go. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump in to explain a little bit of how we're set up. So Texas has 28 Workforce Development Board areas. Ours is one of them. So we are number 4 on the map there in yellow. And you can see that we surround Dallas and Tarrant counties, which operate their own Workforce Development Board. But you can see them all listed there and color-coded on the map. Here's a close-up map. All of the counties in blue are the counties that North Central Texas serves. So, and that little paragraph at the bottom is kind of a good overview. So we oversee programs to assure that the businesses in our 14-county North Central Texas Workforce Development Area remain competitive and grow jobs, that workers have opportunities to obtain skills that will help them become or remain self-sufficient. And that's a big one right now, right? And that the communities are economically resilient. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, but we'll give a better breakdown as we go along. Our vision, mission, and values. We strive to be the recognized leader in building tomorrow's workforce. Our mission is to advance business-driven solutions that promote economic growth. And then we want to operate with integrity and respect. We want to have the courage to shape a better future. We want to be inclusive and leverage our collective genius. And we're all in this together as one community. So our website, you may all access on your own time if you want to check it out. It's dfwjobs.com. So as I was saying, there's the 28 workforce boards, but we also have our local offices around the area. So you can kind of see the little map there with all the red dots of where the workforce centers are located. So Anabel and I are not at a workforce center, but what we do is work on a team that kind of oversees what's going on at those workforce centers, how we can all operate together to serve our communities. But you can find your local workforce center on our website, and you can see the various communities that we serve there. Now, of course, right now, not all of our workforce centers are open. I think maybe they'll be opening soon or have already started the opening process, but we have created virtual services that are also accessible on dfwjobs.com. So by clicking the virtual services button, you can see the various resources that we have for career seekers and employers, local employers. We also do virtual workshops. We've had virtual job fairs. So we're really doing what we can to adapt. I think as we all are doing what we can to adapt to the current circumstances, but that's how you can seek out those services. And there's a little more information there. The virtual workforce center events will get you to any job fairs, et cetera, that we have going on right now. And the virtual workshops are available as well to go over the services that we offer, benefits. It says here are the tips and insights on getting the most out of the resources available to you. Okay, another resource that we do offer is the mobile workforce unit. So as you can see pictured, it is a mobile unit that can go to different areas for different needs. So most often they're used for hiring events. And there's 13 computers, printer available, visual and audio presentation capable, wheelchair accessible, and software and devices available for people with hearing and visual impairments. So depending on the need, people can request the workforce unit to be available, and staff can be there to kind of walk through some of the resources that we have and how they can be accessed virtually. Anabel, do you have anything you want to add about the mobile unit?
Well, I mean, we have deployed it for emergency support services. So when there has been, even though we cover the 14 county region, in cases when hurricanes have hit our coast, we actually have deployed the unit to support in insurance claims, unemployment claims. We've done other, we have lended the unit in other resources and community efforts. This was really bought with the purpose of helping the employer, but it is a community resource. And as long as there's not a conflict with an employer requesting the unit, we are always willing to lend a mobile unit for an engagement within the community. I think we are one of a handful of workforce boards throughout the state that have a mobile unit because of our territory. So we're not the only one in the state that has one of this kind.
Okay, great. So our role within the workforce centers and at the board is we're helping the unemployed and underemployed job seekers find self-sufficient and meaningful employment. So we're going to go through the array of programs. I keep mentioning the resources to really meet the needs of job seekers. So I believe this is, yes, these are things that can come out of the local workforce centers. So there is a resource room, I believe, at most of the offices with access to computers and internet to go through some of those functions for our customers. Enrollment and job readiness classes, including resume and interview workshops, assistance to help you plan career and provide education or training opportunities. And we're going to go into a lot more detail about these and referrals to other community resources. All right, so I like how this is titled our ecosystem of services. So you can just kind of take a look here at the different people that we serve, the different cohorts or groups or whatever you want to call them. So our adult career seekers, employers, training providers, childcare. I think that surprises a lot of people that childcare is a part of this ecosystem, but it's incredibly important. Vocational rehabilitation, veterans. Anabel, do you want to jump in and kind of do your thing? I feel like you always give a great overview of these things much quicker.
Well, I think this one is just a big cobweb, right? Like we're what we said at the top, what Danielle said at the top is that we're in it together, right? Like we have to be able to work with one another, because folks that come into a workforce center may also be coming into your libraries, may also be coming into a not-for-profit or a college. So the idea here is that all of us should be bonded to try to get be experts in the things that we do to support all these communities. For instance, the EDOs, and we work, the economic development organizations, my apologies, we work with them because they're tasked with attracting and retaining employers. So our task with them is to be able to support them in that endeavor by either facilitating training dollars, providing labor market information, academic institutions, that's about the future, right? Like we need to ensure people are trained, and that goes from community colleges to for-profit training providers to universities like TWU. And we are really engaged with them in helping them in so many ways. You know, we were working with UNT and reviewing their one of their programs of study. Like they needed help in making sure that those programs were aligned. So really here is just how can we share resources and information, and how do we ensure that these communities feel supported through workforce development initiatives.
Okay.
I wanted to ask a question just before we jump into another slide. By show of hands, like I don't know if we have the little poll or like reactions. I'm just curious to know, like for me, workforce development was always, I didn't know what it was until much later into my current job. So I'm curious to who in the audience really knew what workforce development was, or I feel like it's a fancy word in our world. Yeah. And so like, I think that for us, like workforce development, like we use it as an umbrella for a lot of things, right? Like we anything that is training related or EDO and even childcare, right? Because if people can't go to training or can't go to, you know, if they don't have childcare to go to training and find a job, I think it's very difficult for them to be able to get a self-sufficient job. But at the end of the day, if you think about anything that a worker might need, we probably touch it within our services.
Are you ready for the next one, Anabel?
Yeah.
Okay, so veteran services. we want to make sure that we are providing services to everyone, but we will focus on exclusive audiences from time to time and hold special initiatives. One of the things that I've witnessed in my time with Workforce Solutions is the Red, White, and You hiring event for veterans and veterans' families. So that's kind of a specialized event that Texas Workforce Commission kind of charges each workforce board to execute. So that's just been a wonderful way to see how we're helping that special part of the population. But you can see some of the other priority services that we have. So resume and resource room assistance, job search and referral assistance, education and training programs, supportive services, and referral to other programs, and information on veteran health benefits. So any workforce center will be able to assist veterans as they walk in or access the virtual services for the time being. So along with that, we have the career seeker services. I think there's several slides going through this, but we'll start with workintexas.com. I don't know how many of you might be familiar with this, but this, as it says, it's a comprehensive online job search resource available for free. But I will be perfectly frank, it's a pretty vast system. The local offices can help anyone as they navigate this, but it's a great way to, you can fill out an application, Wagner-Pizer, and it'll match your skills and experiences to job openings. You can actually go in and kind of see where you might find a good fit for yourself. Based on either your work history or your interest. So there's a couple, several different things that you access through workintexas.com, but it's a great place to start. And in fact, to access the resources that we have, I believe everyone who enters the local offices will go into Work in Texas and complete a profile. But it's also available all virtual, all online.
Yeah, I want to emphasize that part, Danielle, that this is sort of like our tool that we use. There is a piece of this portal that it's called the Wagner-Pizer application. And so anyone that is receiving benefits or any services must complete the whole profile in Work in Texas. And as you know, from your customers at the library, that can be a challenge if you're not very savvy on technology. It's a challenge for me to complete it, sometimes an application, because I don't know what the system is telling me that I'm missing. And so let's not, add any other complexities to it if they may not have a high school education or they may be not technology savvy. I think that you add those complexities, this makes it difficult to navigate sometimes. So a lot of the time that our staff spends, it's in working with individuals and ensuring that their profile is completed. And as you will see that with the unemployment insurance claims, and as people return back to work with the job search requirements being lifted, this is going to be a hiccup for us. And it has been, because folks need to complete the entire profile. So this is something that when we engage with community resources like yours, we place a lot of emphasis, because we do know that any support that our community can receive by any one of us in order for them to access resources, it's well appreciated by the staff internally. I think Danielle froze.
I'm still here.
There she is.
I was pausing before moving on to the next slide. Do you want to take this part, Anabel?
Sure. So we have, and I see a lot of chat about folks that are familiar with our Workforce Center. So that makes my heart really happy. The reality, though, is that all of us do it a little different, and we call them very different things here in North Texas or North Central Texas. I know that Dallas and Tarrant calls them this too, but It's called talent development specialists. Those are the case workers that help individuals through their workforce journey. And we do provide a lot of workshops. Many times we collaborate with outside resources. Sometimes we procure those trainings through an external vendor. And then most importantly, we do job fairs and hiring events. That is what the thick of our work is to be able to do the matching between employers and job seekers. And how we do that is very different. I know that there is some areas that may print out job postings, and during the pandemic, I think that they were doing a drive-through hiring event. They actually printed jobs and a jobs application and put them in bags, and then people were collecting them because, you know, a lot of the members, employer members in the community were not accepting online applications. So how we respond to these things is very different to, and really that is the purpose of the 28 workforce boards, is that we're responsible for responding and addressing the local needs. And if there's anything within your community that can be done differently, a collaboration or an engagement, as I've seen on the chat, is like, I encourage you to reach back to your workforce board, because they are they're really charged with responding to the community needs. I think the next one is just a little more about the services. So we provide employment assistance for those individuals that are on SNAP or TANF. But they get, we actually receive them as a referral from the Health and Human Services Department. And we help them with their employment search requirement as part of their welfare assistance. And on top of that, we actually are regulated by the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. This is a federal law that provides guidance to all workforce boards throughout the country. And then the ART funding agency, the Texas Workforce Commission, adds their additional flavor on how exactly we're supposed to follow that federal law. But in essence, there is different parameters and categories for individuals to become eligible through the WIOA program. The WIOA program is both for adults and youth, and that those eligibility can get complicated, but in essence, if they face significant barriers. So for the youth program, it may be somebody that is a single mother, or foster youth, and so homeless youth. Those are things that we look into for eligibility purposes. And then, as we mentioned earlier, childcare and other support services. If somebody needs assistance with paying the rent, or getting their car repaired, or paying books for their school, to be able to remove those barriers, we do provide those support services. Once again, they have to be deemed eligible, and that always starts with work in Texas. The last two pieces, actually the next piece, it's interesting because we provide this as a bonding to the employer for them to be able to hire individuals with a background. So we offer them an additional insurance, and that is just to say, for instance, it's somebody that it's working at Walmart in the stockroom, but they are having concerns that this person may steal some of the inventory because they have a juvenile case with theft. Then this bonding may be able to be extended to that individual so that they can be hired for that position, because many times the employers, not sure that they're going to be a good fit for the job. And then labor market information, this is, we try to do our best in ensuring that individuals understand their career options, and that they're able to choose the best career, not only on their aptitude, on their skill, but also on the outcome and the outlook of that occupation. So for instance, CNA is a very popular training program. But here in North Central Texas, it's not in the highest demand. It actually has not been for some time. And so it does not show up in our labor market information tools available to the job seekers, because our job is not just to put in front of them what's popular, but it's also about where they're going to find a job and where it's going to be a job with a living wage, because there's nothing more disheartening than going through 6 months, 9 months, or 18 months of training and then finding yourself in not being able to find a job at the end of the exercise. So we try to do our best in ensuring that those individuals are well prepared in their career outlook or their career search, whether it's a job or a training program. And trade adjustment assistance program, this is unique. This happens if a job or someone's job left the country. So this is, we see this often in IT or warehousing, I'm sorry, not warehousing, manufacturing or IT, where a company has relocated their job functions to a foreign country. And those individuals get additional services to be able to adjust back to another line of work or another job. And this is especially important in communities where a employer is at the thick or the core of that community. You know, when I first started this job about 9 years ago, one of my first interactions with this program was with a company called Rubbermaid in Greenville, Texas. And if you're familiar with Greenville, it's a small community here in North Central Texas. And they actually, they had left some of the operations here, and it was unsure if they were actually going to relocate that manufacturing facility here, or they were going to take it somewhere else, but they were leaving Greenville altogether. And that was devastating to the community that was already in a very difficult predicament. And so what happens with this is that because some of the individuals that work in that facility had been there for decades, and they had never, worked on a resume. They had not had an opportunity to enhance their skills, and they only knew how to do things the Rubbermaid way. And the community didn't have any other job opportunities because that was the employer of choice in the community. So what happens with some of this is that we try to wrap around as many things to be able to support those job seekers that in many cases may have a lot more odds against them. And so what we try to do is help them with training, job search, and relocation, any other support services to ensure that they have a positive outcome. And then the last, second to last bullet here, it is a loaded one because we call them work-based learning programs, and this is a flavor of the same thing. So they're on-the-job training. This is where the job seeker may have some skill set, but may not have the degree or the certification that the employer requires. And so what we hope to do with this program is being able to present them to the employer, and they hire them for 6 months, and we subsidize some of the wages to be able to ensure that they are investing the time to train them up to that certificate level. The subsidized employment and opportunity is also, it's different in a sense that we are the employer of record, and we place that individual at the employer site, but it is also an individual that may have some shortcomings, either because they don't have the skills that they need, or they may have some challenges in keeping a job because they have had challenges finding childcare, or they were on TANF or SNAP. And so the idea here is supporting those individuals with whatever form of program they need while meeting the demand of the employer. And apprenticeships, I think that many of us on this call know what that is. And it is, a buzzword. Dr. Jane was talking about money. This is certainly a place that there's a lot of money for. I think the federal government and the state has been attempting to support this program through several funding streams. And so I will definitely encourage you to look at it as an opportunity to collaborate with your workforce boards, because there is a lot of those opportunities. And lastly, community resources, and this is something that we're working on, that we're trying to do a better job at doing this, because right now what happens is that each of the workforce centers has a list of resources that is available to the workforce center upon their request, or as they're discovering their needs with their training programs. With their training TDS, or training development specialist. And what we're looking for, and what the board has charged us to do, is to reconsider the way that we partner with individuals. So instead of just doing a referral and putting it on a paper, that we're actually working hand in hand with each and every one of you. So instead of me just saying, well, you can go to the library, that will help you with that I am actually fully aware of the plethora of services that you have. And I know that I'm in constant communication on whether or not you have capacity to serve those things. So many of our libraries may offer GED classes or AEL classes, but sometimes you guys stop because you have other priorities. And so there's nothing more discouraging if we as an institution are referring them to you and you're not ready to receive them. So what the board has been charging us to do is to reconsider the way that we classify partners, stakeholders, and collaborators, so that we are doing a better job at referring and exchanging information between the two of us. So this is actually a work in progress for us.
Okay, cross your fingers that this video works. It's one of our youth program participant testimonials, and Anabel and I had the opportunity to listen to her speak at a recent event, and it was very touching. So I hope you also enjoy hearing what she has to say.
My name is Deandrea Anderson, and I was a customer at the Corsicana Workforce Center. Back in 2015, I hit a roadblock and basically was arrested. So I have some things on my background, and I just thought that my work experience would only consist of food places or warehouse jobs that typically accept people with things on their background. Initially, I went to go get a job at a coffee shop, and so they partnered with the Texas workforce in Corsicana, and so they suggested I go speak with Morgan Richardson about their youth program. The youth program has helped me with their work experience process. So they send you out on a job interview, and if the company agrees, then they get in communication with the Texas Workforce Center to assist with that process. Given my background on paper, I'm not exactly on paper what you would hire unless you actually meet me. However, through the workforce, I was able to land some pretty awesome work experiences that led me to pursue an associate's degree in paralegal studies, getting my bachelor's in applied arts and sciences, along with landing a long-term job. Morgan has been such an inspiration to me. She's been really my backbone through most of this process, aside from family support, of course, but just pushing me to reach higher heights that I didn't think that I was capable of reaching. And I just appreciate you. I love you. And I thank you for everything.
All right. Trying to hit the next slide button and there we go. Okay, and I want to check on our time. Are we still doing okay? We have until 8, or do we need to stop a little earlier than that?
No, you're fine until 8.
Okay. I think we'll get through the rest of this rather quickly. I just wanted to double check with you all. Okay. So our workforce centers deliver tailored services for business partners. So this can look a number of different ways depending on what the business partner's needs are. And there is a team of folks at the center who work with them to meet those needs. So it could be job postings, recruitment assistance. We've already mentioned the hiring events and job fairs. Anabel covered the on-the-job training and subsidized employment. So just a myriad of things. We kind of listen to the business partners' needs and work with the customers coming in to see if we can marry the two and find a good fit for everyone involved. And community partners, Anabel touched on this a little bit as a work in progress. So this is really where both her and I come in, because we are at the board level really looking at this strategically and thinking about how we work with our communities. So on my end of things, I mostly work with the K through 12 and community college partners that we have, as well as our university partners. So that might be making sure that they understand and have access to relevant labor market information. It might be looking at grants that are available or helping them with grants that might need our support. So we're supporting, leveraging, and aligning resources through those grant endeavors and different funding opportunities. So I was explaining this a little bit before we met today too, that there are so many of us in our communities, so many different organizations or individuals that are all striving to kind of, we might have the same goals. And so Anabel and I are both trying to build those partnerships with our communities. That way we can kind of see when that's happening and learn how to fill that gap, or how to bridge it, how to bring all of us together so that we can serve our communities in the best way and all of those wonderful people. We do have vocational rehabilitation services. So individuals who have physical or intellectual disabilities, we do want to help them find and maintain jobs. And these, we call them VR, they are located at the workforce centers. We also have student hireability navigators. In our region, I believe we have 2 that serve kind of, each of them serve a half of our service area, but they also work closely with the schools and try to find opportunities and get students set up for success in their future, regardless of their abilities. So Anabel, feel free to jump in if you see anything. I might just kind of pop through these last slides.
I would just add, for this one is new. You might be familiar with DARS. This is a new integration. Actually, DARS transitioned into vocational rehab, and they were actually moved under the direction of the Texas Workforce Commission, or in the support of the Texas Workforce Commission. And the things that they provide is like really, really wonderful things. I mean, it could be as simple as hearing aids to somebody that is looking for a job or is trying to go to training and they are unable to hear very well because of their age. They have cover for things like full training, college training for the hard of hearing or visually impaired. So I really encourage you to be able to look at this program as you encounter individuals in our community that may need assistance with finding employment or going to training. And they do things a little different than we do on the TDS side of the conversation. So earlier we were mentioning Work in Texas being sort of our guiding star as we run eligibility. VR uses a completely different standard, and the way that they are able to provide assistance is very different than what we do in the workforce WIOA world. So please do know that they are able to help our customers, our clients. And so, and you know, I see in the chat, I think that the experiences with this transition has been very difficult because they are trying to integrate themselves into a system that they're not familiar with. And so, and everyone is just a little different. You know, my father actually received services through them, and it was a lot of work, and it was very persistent. You require a lot of persistence in some cases to be able to get some of this support. And so I encourage you to build those relationships. I always have a regional director, so I encourage you to build that relationship, not only with the local individual, but with their supervisor that has a bigger region, because then they'll be able to speak to you about challenges as they're transitioning into this. And then there's another comment here I wanted to just quickly. Okay, we'll tackle that in just a little bit, but I'll have it here, so.
Okay, so I mentioned the student hireability navigators. So they are working with the student population or the youth population with differing abilities. So pre-employment, transition services, you know, and I know that there are various organizations that are working with populations with disabilities. But you know, it's really interesting to kind of see those employer partners who might say, you know, yes, we want to work with this population, and there's really wonderful things happening. And you know, those navigators are doing a lot of great work with those students. So I think I was kind of mentioning that with that partnership between the ISDs. Annabelle, do you want to add anything here? I feel like I'm kind of trying to rush, but not wanting to leave anything important out.
This is a new program for us. Actually, it has been active for about 2 years. But once again, this is a new trial and error, how to support students before they actually transition out of school. And so that requires like some different level of work, especially for the ages that we're working here, right? Because at this time in their journey, they're being encouraged to be self-advocates and look for resources. And many times, I mean, you know, that's a struggle within itself. So the navigators are intended to help them find their voice within their journey, because as they progress in their education journey and into adulthood, those services are no longer predetermined for them, but instead they're a self-choice, and they need to be sought after. So the role of the navigator is to support those individuals into that journey and transition into that role.
Okay, and you can also find that under the special initiatives on dfwjobs.com and speak with a navigator. And then the Summer Earn and Learn program, I think it was mentioned in another slide previously, but so helping those with disabilities and achieve that self-sufficient employment like we've been saying. So this occurs every summer between May and August, and it's statewide, working again with that population 14 to 22, and just getting them ready for work, whether it's training and the paid work experience we've mentioned. So this says in 2019, 311 students were placed in paid work experience for 5 or plus weeks. And what we have seen that comes out of this sometimes is that those employers do keep those students and continue their work with them, which is a really beautiful thing. Okay, Annabelle, do you want to go through this slide?
Yeah, this is just very quickly, and I think it's important for us to kind of give you a little bit of a quick breakdown, because all of our workforce centers, every workforce center in the state of Texas is managed independently from the board. So without getting too complicated in the nuances of this, we have a board of directors, then there is a headquarters office. We usually call that the board office or board staff. And then each of the workforce centers is managed by a contractor. And so based on the conversation in the chat, it seems like many of you are familiar with the contractor staff, individuals that are managing the day-to-day operations. And for us, that contractor is Equus. They used to be Rescare Workforce Services. They recently went through a name transition. And that is the setup for all of our workforce centers. My encouragement to you is to try to be able to connect with the board staff as you're looking for more strategic initiatives or long-term or funding partnerships. Because they are, as Danielle said at the top of the conversation, they are responsible for providing oversight to the contractor. So one-on-one efforts on participating on events, that is exactly where they live with the contractor. But if you're looking for a more sustainable relationship or trying out new things or piloting a program, it is always important for us, at least in North Central, for us to be able to manage that at the board level, to be able to ensure that there is consistency across the 14 county regions. Yeah. As it was said in the chat, some challenges with this transition with VR services. While I mentioned that they integrated into Texas Workforce Commission, those individuals are not in the reporting structure that aligns with our contractor. They actually report directly to a central office in Austin. And that is the same case with the Texas Veterans Commission. They live in our workforce centers, they work in our workforce center, they share resources, we do referrals within those partners, but we don't have any managing control over those individuals, which complicates a little bit when we're trying to troubleshoot some of these challenges, right? You know, being able to ensure that there is consistent services among all the partners that live within our house. And then lastly, there is some senior community service employment program at some of the workforce centers. And once again, they're part of the ecosystem. They're not necessarily part of our structure. So I think that some of this, for us, it's important for us to be transparent with the partners in the pieces that we have, so that as we are discovering opportunities, that you know that we may have to transfer some of those action items to somebody else. And I would love to be able to lift up some of those comments that were left in the chat and being able to figure out how we can support you, or at least find you a different contact within the VR services or any of our services to ensure that your communities are getting served in the way that you need to.
Okay. All right, so I think we have a few minutes. If we have the time, we'd be happy to address some of the questions in the chat, or if anyone wants to unmute themselves, I'm sure that would be fine.
Just looking to see if there's any particular question in the chat. Are there fees for any of your services?
The short answer is no. There is, as I mentioned, some of the workforce centers may have a fee for service. At least for North Central, we don't have any of our services have fees, but other workforce boards may choose to offer pieces of things that they do for a fee. So it really depends on your local workforce boards. Mm-hmm. The things that we mentioned earlier, if they're eligibility based, there's no fee. If they're general services, then there may be some fees. Okay. Even on the business sides, all of the things that we do are at no cost to the business. I did see a comment from one of the libraries asking about internet and broadband and infrastructure. And we don't necessarily pay for that. I know that we've talked about providing hotspots and like tools for them to connect. But we would love to partner And I think a lot of the workforce boards will love to partner on a grant to seek those type of funding resources. I know that they're in great need in our rural communities, and being able to strengthen that through a partnership with the workforce board is actually something that I know that a lot of the grantors or the funders are seeking those type of partnerships. So I'm speaking, I think that Pottsboro, I think that you're part of the Texoma workforce board, and you have a great partner out there. I can certainly put you in contact if you want to collaborate with them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Maybe you can unmute yourself. I'm not, for the last question that I see on the chat.
Diane?
There we go. Yes, so I was just, the board members, when you're talking about contacting them as opposed to the workers at, and Texoma Workforce is great. We partner with them well, but to get to the more strategic initiatives, that would be the board members.
It will be the board staff. So it wouldn't be your local workforce center staff. So there's two layers. There is the board of directors and there is board staff. So I wouldn't contact the board of directors because they're just a board of directors. It will be the board staff. Okay. And I was particularly thinking about Marcia. And I think her information is on the website. Usually the headquarters staff is on the website. If you need me to make an introduction, I'll be more than happy to do so.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good.
So what I'm thinking about, and even long before today's webinar, was there's a whole bunch really rich information from Workforce Solutions and Texas Workforce Commission and coming down. And there are also a lot of things that we do in libraries, and as we see in the chat, many of you know about Workforce Solutions, have seen activities in your library, or maybe the mobile unit come into your communities and all that. And every time I hear about all this, it always comes back to the same question that I keep asking. What can libraries do? How can library make the best use of information, of the kind of resources that are available from the workforce solution centers, the workforce centers? And I kept thinking, okay, the first thing, of course, is when we know a user or a community member has the need, childcare needs, veterans, we can probably refer them to the workforce center and to get a direct service from them. We can also refer the business community, the employers, to the Workforce Solutions Center, because there are a lot of things that employers can do, and the Workforce Solutions are providing the kind of support for the business. And then, of course, we also have our own share of job seeking assistance, hiring events, job fairs, recruitment assistance, and all that. And so the Workforce Solutions Center in your area might be doing something that's very similar to what you're doing. And so how do we work together to really build on the strength of each other so that we can reach out to more people in the recruitment, in the training, and disseminating information about jobs? And then, of course, the one thing that I wonder, of all of you who work in the libraries, how many of you have workforce solution information on your website or in your library? And how could you incorporate that into your website into your library so that people can see the information. Just so the library is almost like the gateway to all the information that is available from the workforce solutions. It's not that you're repeating their information. It is that you provide that bridge for people to reach out into the workforce solution centers much faster and more directly. Those are the things I can think of. Can anyone think of other things?
Well, actually, I had a question. This is Carol. And that question is about whether there is any place that people can look to see examples of partnerships that have been established within the various centers so that people could get an idea of what that looks like.
The short answer is no. I think that some of this is why I think the workforce board, at least for our board members, there has been some interest about community partnerships and how do we strengthen that. Because so many times that is happening one-on-one based on the individuals. And I don't know if it happens to any one of you on the call, but many times you build that relationship with that workforce center manager, with that individual, and that individual leaves, and all of a sudden you're starting from scratch because that individual was your only anchor to that organization or to Workforce Solution. So some of the things that, at least for North Central, what we're hoping to do is being able to institutionalize, I mean, maybe that's not the right word here, but to formalize some of this work so that we're not dependent upon individuals' preferences or working relationship, that we're actually building it so that the organizations are engaging and that there's a formal relationship, and that if either one of us are no longer there, that there's a continuum of that relationship going forward. Because I think that if you were to ask even the individuals on the call, there's a lot of best practices, but then they just kind of fall flat depending on circumstances or priorities. And so I think that is really where we fall short as a workforce development system at large. And I really want to speak on the behalf of North Central, because I actually have not done any research to engage the other 27 workforce boards to see if they have done this differently. What I encourage all of us really is to dream it, right? And to kind of dig. And that's why I'm encouraging all of you to reach out beyond the workforce center if you want to formalize something and make it a little bigger. And I'm gonna get myself in trouble because all of us do it differently. So if you go to the other workforce board and say, well, Anabel and North Central said that I should call you, I may get some few emails, but I think at the end of the day, what we should be looking for is being able to get this past the individual relationship, right?
Yeah. Well, and somebody talked earlier about the need to kind of bring things together, maybe connect the dots or finding gaps and addressing those. And it seems to me like with the wonderful things that the different centers are doing, that the gaps may occur between the different places, the communication issue. I'm especially concerned about in rural communities, because of course that is the group that you're talking to here, and what the possibilities are for them and how they could possibly even visualize how that would work in a community where, as somebody says, they're 200 miles away. So kind of awareness and communication there.
Yeah. Well, just to give an example, the Workforce Success Leadership Team just finished a grant proposal. This is a regional grant proposal for what we call Advance Together grant. And in this one, we're basically asking about $300,000 for 3 years. And one of the things that we thought of course, was there is a program that's already going on. It's called Working Family Success Pilot Program. And that is with the North Central Texas College. This is the community college here in Denton County. And what we're also looking at, one, of course, is to help the students get through their program without dropping out, getting through the program with the financial health and be employable and all that. One of the things that was so natural for us is to think about the role of Workforce Solutions of North Central Texas in this. And this is one of the things that we're going to be able to add to the employment workforce. And so this is the kind of thing that a lot of us don't really think about. Workforce Solution is a governmental agency, almost like a governmental agency. And we don't really see governmental agency as someone that we could actually collaborate. And this is a good example when they could actually work with nonprofit, they could work with a university, a community college, and they could also work with libraries. And that's something that we have to keep in mind. And so that was just something that we just finished.
Yeah, I wouldn't, I would say that that we're not believers until we see it. So it requires some persistence, right? It requires dreaming it and pushing it and having those conversations on an ongoing basis. I don't get discouraged if they don't take you up on the first kind of try. Like, we are trained to work within the parameters of our measures, right? Like if you see any of our workforce websites, we call this MPR, I don't even know what it stands for. It's our monthly performance review. Don't get me lying. It's the numbers that they measure whether or not we're doing a good job in the community. And by those numbers, that is exactly what many folks are trained to think about. And so, and that is just the case for all of us, right? In city or government work, we're trained to operate within the boxes that we're given. And so I would just ask you to don't give up on us as you're dreaming and things that you're working on. I see here that, if you have those workers that are working off their tickets, I encourage you to see this as a pilot program, right? There's nothing better than trying it out. I can tell you that many of the things that stop us from engaging fully with our partners is that we want some commitment on the other side, right? If we want to call it a pilot program, that we know that you're fully engaged in ensuring that that individual is also going to be supported through you. And that sometimes is the shape of an MOU or a letter or, a meeting in which we know exactly what you're going to do and what we're going to do and what pieces are going to contribute to our performance and what pieces are going to be a challenge to our performance. So I think that the more that you know that, I think all of us are trying. Some of us are trained to say no because it's a path of least resistance. And sometimes it's because we were given a box that sometimes is too rigid for us to operate within. So that doesn't mean that we don't want to do it. It just means that we have to, we need some help.
Yeah. Okay, it is now 5 minutes after 8, just bringing up the time.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, fantastic.
Well, thank you, Anabel, Danielle. Thank you so much for giving us a good detailed overview of the workforce solution of North Central Texas. And anywhere you are going to find the workforce center in your area. Make the best use of it, and hopefully we will be able to build the partnership much better. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
I'll share the link to the recording when I get it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Everybody have a good evening.
Okay, Carol, I think you're the one who can stop the recording.